back to video.
And we do actually have a small enough group today that I've encouraged dialogue. We have Cheryl, are you at home there? And you live near Joplin, right?
I'm in Stockton, and I will be leaving at 12:30.
Okay. And then Jeannie, where are you joining us from?
Chesterfield, Missouri, near St. Louis.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Yule Lawson also looks like he's on. He might not have a microphone. Yule's office is with the Missouri Public Utilities Alliance here in Columbia. And here are the things we're going to go over today. We're going to go over an update on energy efficiency in Missouri, a recap of what happened during the legislative session, and then look at the road ahead. I'm going to start off by talking about energy efficiency. Then you'll hear from Josh Jones on what happened during the legislative session this year. And then I'll come back and talk some about the road ahead. And we're also video recording this, is that right? I think we're video recording this, so Cheryl, if you need to leave at 12:30, then you can watch the rest of it later. We'll email it to you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so I'm going to start off talking about what happened this year with energy efficiency. And in order for that to make sense, we need to back up till 2 years ago in the spring of 2000. Oh. Okay. Just one moment and I'll be back with you. It's just that for me. Okay. All right, now I'm back with you. Okay, so to understand what happened with energy efficiency this year, we need to back up till the spring of 2009 when the legislature passed a bill called Senate Bill 376. It's also referred to as the Missouri Energy Efficiency Investment Act. Its aim was to allow utility companies, the complaint was Kansas City Power and Light was saying, you know, we would like to do more energy efficiency, but we don't have the right regulatory treatment. If we had more security in our ability to recover our costs from our ratepayers to the Public Service Commission, then sure, we'd do more energy efficiency. So they wrote this law called Senate Bill 376 and passed it in 2009. And what happened next was a process called rulemaking. So in front of the Public Service Commission for about 2 years, there was a process that we participated in where we helped define the rules for how exactly would utilities be compensated for their investments into energy efficiency. Because we're on board with that concept. If they're going to invest in energy efficiency, it's the cheapest resource out there, and they certainly should recoup their investment in that. In fact, we were successful in the rulemaking process in establishing actual benchmarks, numerical targets for if they, say in their first year, get 1% of their load from energy efficiency, meaning as opposed to what they normally would, the power they normally would have sold, they only sell 99% as much. They save 1% of that because of energy efficiency programs. Then they not only recoup those investments, but they have a small financial incentive to do so as well. And that steps up till 2%. Those targets step up to them saving an additional 2% per year by 2021. If those rules work as planned, they would actually, by 2021, be generating 20% less electricity than they otherwise would have. That's a pretty big deal. Even on renewable energy standards, just a 15% renewable energy standard. So this law, if the rules are implemented correctly or effectively, would mean a lot of energy efficiency savings for the state of Missouri. The Public Service Commission finalized these rules in February of this year, and we thought we'd done a pretty good job. Through the whole informal and formal rulemaking process, it seemed like we had a good dialogue with all the different stakeholders, and we had some good, strong rules that came out that would encourage utilities to invest in more energy efficiency. Well, a couple of weeks after that, Ameren announced that they didn't like the rules. They didn't think they got enough financial incentives for doing what they wanted to do, so they're planning on investing in less energy efficiency than they otherwise would have. So we were disappointed to see that, and this is something that is actually in flux. It remains to be seen if that law and those rules will be effective or not. So we're monitoring this at the Public Service Commission, and remain hopeful that this will be effective, but if it's not, then we might need to include something for energy efficiency when we go back, if we go back to the ballot in 2012, or go back to the legislature and try and make a stronger law. Basically, Senate Bill 376 allows utilities to return their investment on efficiency, but it doesn't require them to actually invest any money in efficiency. So we were hoping it would be able to be effective without the requirement part, but it might be that we actually have to have a legal requirement that utilities invest in energy efficiency in order for them to do so. That remains to be seen. Another thing that happened, or that's happening right now, actually, is that the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy is just in the final steps of wrapping up a report that they have done on Missouri. Now, they've done this report on about 12 other states, and it basically says, here's the energy efficiency potential in this state. Here's what's possible if you were to fully take advantage of all the energy efficiency programs that are out there. And not surprisingly, Missouri is very similar to our surrounding states. The ACEEE just finished a story in Arkansas that said they have a lot of energy efficiency potential there, and their study in Missouri says something similar. The final report will be released this summer, and it's interesting because I think that Missouri is going to be the first state where energy efficiency has ever been controversial. Energy efficiency is the cheapest resource out there, and it is way underutilized in Missouri. But every other state that ACEEE has released a report in has been just sort of matter of fact, oh, here's the potential that's out there, and it's been pretty effective at encouraging state policymakers and utilities to go down the road of energy efficiency. In Missouri, that might be what happens, but it also might be that it's highly controversial, and you have some you'll see op-eds and newspaper articles attacking the study and saying that, oh no, Missouri is not like any other state in the whole country. No one in Missouri wants to do energy efficiency. Those are that's the sort of rhetoric that's been out there that the study aims to sort of address by just quantifying what the potential is for energy efficiency. And since we have such a small group, I think we'll stop after each section and just see if there's any questions. The next section we're going to move into here quickly is to talk about what happened during this last legislative session. But before we do that, is there any questions about energy efficiency?
Who are the representatives on the American Council for Energy Efficiency Economy, as far as how is Missouri going to attack that, those people?
Well, ACEEE is actually a national organization. It's a national nonprofit based in D.C., and it's mostly energy efficiency experts. I think there's some previous commissioners that work with them. But the study itself was commissioned by the Public Service Commission and Department of Natural Resources. They paid for the study, and so there's not, since it's a national organization, there's not actually representatives that, the elected officials involved created the law, Senate Bill 376 in 2009, and that's sort of where their responsibility ended, I think. They feel like they did something for energy efficiency. But ACEEE is a separate entity that does these reports in multiple states. Did that get at your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just wondering, how it's going to be attacked when the report comes out, as we suspect it will.
Yeah. Good question. And at a high level, I think the reason it will be attacked is that Ameren is incentivized to always ask for more. And so even though the rules that we've come up with for 376 and the law and the rules that are in place right now in Missouri are deemed effective, I mean, they should be effective at encouraging energy efficiency investment. It seems like Ameren is taking the stance that it's always in their financial advantage to ask for more financial incentives. And so that's what they're saying, like, oh, well, Missouri is different than other states. We don't want, it seems like they don't want energy efficiency here, and we don't want to do it because we don't make enough money. We need to have more. We don't care how much other utilities are incentivized in other states, or even how we're incentivized in Illinois. Ameren functions in Illinois and invests a lot more in energy efficiency there. So they're saying Missouri is an anomaly. It's a standalone case, and we need more money if we're going to do this here. I don't know if it'll rise to the level of having elected officials weigh in on it. Energy efficiency is such an esoteric subject. There's not that many people that know what they're talking about or what the talking points would be in the first place. But certainly, we're gearing up to support that study when it comes out and say, hey, it looks like Missouri has lots of energy efficiency potential. We'd like for us to go down that road. I don't know that there's a specific objection to it. I think that from what we can tell, Ameren is just so focused on their one and only priority of building another nuclear power plant that it seems like it's to their advantage to hold the head under the water of energy efficiency and renewable energy and say, oh no, those things don't work. The only thing that works is nuclear energy.
This is Cheryl. Are there any people or organizations associated with the rural cooperatives that you think will oppose the study?
That's a good question. There have been, in the coalition in favor of another nuclear power plant, it does involve the electric co-ops and the municipal owned utilities. I don't know. Yule Lawson is on. I don't know if you can hear Yule. If you can chime in on the chat box or over voice, then we might be able to get some direct feedback there. But no, I don't know any. I haven't heard anything specific from the electric co-ops on that. I'm not sure if they would come out. My understanding is that they're sort of on the sidelines because since the Public Service Commission doesn't regulate them directly, I think they feel more independent and not as included in this.
Okay. When I talk with my local representative on the board of directors for Saco Sage Electric, I always encourage them to pursue energy efficiency. It costs nothing. It pays great dividends. And my experience is they mostly don't know what energy efficiency means. So that's why I was curious if there was a larger perspective representing the cooperative.
Good question. I don't know the full answer to that, and but the fight, as I understand it, is at the level of the Public Service Commission. So I think that the municipal and utilities and the rural electric co-ops are sort of monitoring this, but not as directly involved with it. But I'll certainly look into that more and get back with you. Is that Cheryl that was asking?
Yes. Yes. And I'm also wondering if we as homeowners have any influence in the Public Service Commission, so that perhaps we need to write letters to support this report when it comes out.
That's a good question. When it comes out, it's going to come out and be released. The ACEEE will have a couple of press conferences, so we'll send an email out and let everyone know when those are. So if they happen to have one near you, you can come show up to support it there. I don't think that there'll be a process in front of the Public Service Commission specifically with this report. I think the process in front of the PSC will be more in proceedings that would refer to the report. But fantastic question, and it's up to us to let you know when those opportunities arise. Okay,
PJ, I needed to log off now, so I would appreciate it if you would email me the link to the rest of this.
Sure. Thanks for your questions, Cheryl. Good to hear you.
Thanks so much. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Great. Do we have any other questions about energy efficiency before we move on? It looks like we have a couple. Kathleen Carson, or can you? So Kathleen Carson and Yule Lawson and Bob Jackson on. Any of you on via voice right now?
Bob Jackson, I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. Great, Bob. You're not in front of a computer, Bob?
Yes, I've got your screen up.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, and then Kathleen, I see you said no, sorry. Okay, great. So Kathleen and Bob, do you both see the? If you scroll to the top of the chat screen there, you see there's a URL link. It says www.ustream.tv. If you click on that, you can actually see a video of ourselves presenting as well. So I'm going to pass the microphone, the headset off now to Josh Jones, and he's going to give you a rundown on what happened during the legislative session this spring.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Well, I'm going to... Okay, so... One second here. Hey, okay. So as PJ mentioned, I'm Josh Jones with Renew Missouri, and we're going to talk a little bit about the legislative session overview this year. And I think we'll start off with, as you can see, the slide that's in front of you now, discussing the balance of power. So going into this legislative session, we all know what happened in November 2010. There was a strong shift of power within both the Missouri Senate and Missouri House in creating supermajorities within the Republican Party, both in the Missouri House and the Senate. 70% in the Senate and 67% within the House. And, you know, I believe strongly that renewable energy is not a partisan issue, but given the complexities of the political dialogue and political structure within our state, it has taken that element to a degree. So we knew going into this legislative session that we were facing a pretty significant challenge with the balance of power there. Coming into this legislative session, as well as PJ had mentioned earlier, with the renewable electricity standard that we had been working on, there was a Joint Committee on Administrative Rules action in May of 2010, which struck a key provision from the voter-approved ballot initiative, and it passed. It removed the geographic sourcing language, and is everyone still hearing me fine? It's saying I'm having...
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I'm Jean.
Okay. So the action within JCAR sort of moved the issue into this year's legislative session. And the Senate and the House were voting on SCR 1, which basically was stripping the geographic sourcing provision from Missouri's renewable electricity standard. And that geographic sourcing provision required that to comply with the law, to comply with those renewable energy targets, the power actually had to be sold to Missouri. And so with the that action, SCR 1 went before the Senate, and the debate that we were hearing there was, you know, it's not about the policy; it's a procedural issue. They were arguing that the Public Service Commission was overstepping their regulatory authority in issuing the rules that they issued, so they were sort of shifting the power back, the balance of power back into the legislature by dealing with SCR 1. It passed in the Senate quite quickly. In that same time period, we had a wind and solar lobby day, which was actually a tremendous success. We had over 50 supporters. There were representatives from all across the country, from major wind companies that were able to really lend a really technical expertise in understanding the industry and understanding the transmission issues, and it was really a great event, very educational for everyone involved. So SCR 1 passed both the House and Senate. Governor let SCR 1 go through into law, and in response to that, Speaker Stephen Tilley established the Special Committee on Renewable Energy. And the main focus of that organization of that committee was to create a legislative fix for Prop C. and Representative Jason Holzman was named the chairman, who many of you may know is quite the champion for renewable energy. He's been there in Jefferson City advocating for renewable energy and policies that advance renewable energy and energy efficiency since, I believe, 2008, 2007. And the main focus of that committee the main focus of the committee was a fix for Prop C, which came in the version of HB 613. Are there any questions at this point? Okay.
So it's true that provision of getting the power from alternative power from inside Missouri was wiped out, isn't it?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite fully catch you, but you said, did you say the provision for generating the power within the state of Missouri was wiped out? Was that what you said?
It was eliminated, right? That was my understanding.
Yeah, there was actually never a provision specifically requiring energy to be generated within the state. There was, however, a 1.25 multiplier. So if there was a megawatt of power produced within the state, and say KCP&L purchased that power, they would be credited at 1.25 megawatts. So there was there was the opportunity to receive some extra credit for that power. So that provision is still intact, but with the ability now to purchase renewable energy credits from anywhere on the open market, it's essentially rendered moot because those REC prices on the global market are so depressed.
All right.
Okay, I'll move on to the next slide here. So HB 613, from the start, it was a frustrating process, realizing that we came in with the very first version of 613 we felt was a very strong version. It would have allocated a significant amount of funding to generate the renewable electricity to get up to that 15% target, but each version was resulting in significantly less renewable power. And so what we ended up with was 613 would have required 750 megawatts of new renewables, and compared to Prop C, which would have required 3,000 megawatts, you can see it's considerably lower, maybe a quarter of the actual targets. The one highlight is that 613 did require that all the power would be sold to Missouri. It would be actually delivered into the state. So even if it were a wind farm in Iowa, that wind farm would be delivering that power into Missouri homes across the border. Also within 613 it would have doubled the incentives for solar. So there would have some strong solar provisions within there to help continue to build and grow this nation industry within the state and give them some of the certainty that they are looking for in terms of keeping their employees on the payroll. 613 ultimately passed out of the Renewable Energy Committee 10-0. And really, behind the backdrop of 613 always was the negotiation around the early site permit. So the nuclear issue of early site permitting and the negotiations between the major industrial users and the investor-owned utilities was behind the backdrop all along. And HB 613 made it to the House floor towards the end of the session. It ultimately was sent to the informal calendar. We thought that there was no more shot of passing 613 this session. The final day of session, we got word that there had been a deal struck between Ameren and the industrial energy users with about an hour and a half left in session. As a part of the package for getting the early site permit bill passed, and a part of reaching that compromise was having HB 613 be a part of that package, that omnibus that would would have passed through the Senate floor. So the bill lands in the Senate with about 45 minutes left. It goes into debate. It's looking as each senator standing up, giving opposition, but ultimately sitting down and giving way for it to pass. It seems like it's getting ready to pass. But ultimately the bill died at about 5:45 with 15 minutes left, and it was quite the tense environment. All the lobbyists were in the building, in the Senate floor, sitting around watching this unfold, and ultimately it ended up dying, and there was a giant sigh of relief, a gasp of seeing this happen. Any questions at this point before we move on to the next slide? Okay. So one other important piece of legislation that we were working on was the establishment of interconnection standards. And this took form in HB 877. We, to explain what interconnection standards are, Missouri currently has interconnection standards regarding small systems, so systems that are smaller than 100 kilowatts. So that's your typical solar, small-scale, residential or commercial solar system. Most of your residential systems are maybe 5 kilowatt, 5 to 10 kilowatt. Some of your commercial systems are getting up to 25 kilowatt, 50 kilowatts. So we're dealing with the small interconnection, but this bill aims to simplify and streamline the interconnection of systems that are much larger, so 100 kilowatts to 20 megawatts. And we had a hearing in the House Utilities Committee. The chairman of that committee recognizes the importance of this issue and thinks that interconnection and distributed generation is something that we really need to address within the state. So we had a hearing in the committee. We had a sponsor, Representative T.J. Berry. He's from just outside of the Kansas City area. And we are working this summer on a stakeholder summit to hammer out provisions within this law and hopefully create a much stronger framework for developers and municipalities that are looking to develop these types of projects of the large-scale interconnection. I think I'm going to leave some time here towards the end. Any questions about the legislative session before we hop over on to the next slides?
No, not for me.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and hand the mic back over to PJ, and he'll talk about the road ahead. Thank you.
All right, so what are we going to do now? Well, let's see. There's a few different things that we're going to do now. Interconnection policy took some steps forward this spring, but we still have lots of mid-sized users of power, so commercial and industrial folks that would like to connect renewable energy on their side of the meter and don't have interconnection standards to do so. Oh, okay, thanks. I see a message from Yul Lawson here. Thanks for responding, Yul, to that question about what's going on with rural electric co-ops. I don't think Cheryl's on anymore, but thank you for that message. Yul says that he believes that the cooperatives are pushing energy efficiency with their system as their generating capacity is capped and continues to rise. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Yul. Looking ahead, interconnection policy is something we plan to support in the legislative session. It seems like there's probably enough interest out there, and this is enough of a common sense sort of policy that we can probably go to the next step. This last session, as Josh just told you about, we had a hearing in the House of Representatives. Representative Berry sponsored a bill on interconnection, and so our plan for that is to work on that this summer and over the fall and get more stakeholders involved and push forward an interconnection bill that works for people on both sides of the meter. PACE programs are starting to pop up around Missouri. I believe Jefferson City is the first one to have one that is in place. And last I heard, they were planning on making PACE loans available this month, either in June or July, commercially. PACE, for those of you who don't know, there's a property assessed clean energy. It allows property owners to install energy efficiency and renewable energy systems on their property with bonds, with public bonds that are put forth by municipalities, and then they repay those investments with a special assessment on their property taxes. We have done, most of our focus has been on the Public Service Commission and the regulated utilities for the last couple of years, and over the next year we plan to continue to do that, but also to expand our bandwidth and talk with folks at the municipal-owned utilities and the rural electric co-ops and get a better understanding of what they have going already in the realm of renewable energy and energy efficiency, and see if there's things that we can do to help support the growth of those programs. One thing that we do here in Columbia each spring is help put on the Advancing Renewables in the Midwest Conference. It's about 180 people usually come to it, and it's in March or April each year. That's a good opportunity for folks to get together from all the different utilities and the renewable energy and energy efficiency world and mingle and sort of learn what each other is doing. And I think we can do more with that. So we're planning over the course of the next year to do more outreach to the municipal and utilities and rural electric co-ops, see which ones are doing the most for efficiency and renewables, and see if we can help, at a minimum, get some cross-communication going between the different ones so we can get some more momentum going. Well, we go back to the ballot in 2012. Right now we're in the middle of a feasibility study. There's polling that is in the field right now. Last time around, that was the first major step in the process in 2008. We got together a few dollars and commissioned a statewide poll, and that original poll said that if we put renewable energy standard on the ballot for 15% renewable energy standard in 2008, and then if it wasn't a contested campaign, it would pass with 66% of the vote. Interestingly, at that time in 2007, usually polling says that if there's not a contested if there's not a contested campaign, I'm sorry, just a second. If there's not a contested campaign, then there's a certain percentage of people that are likely to vote yes, and then if there's a positive campaign, there's more people that vote yes, and if there's a negative campaign, there's more people who vote no. Well, in 2007, our polling is very interesting. The pollster said he hadn't seen this before. In 2007, the polling showed that it was 66% of the people that would vote yes, but if there was actually a campaign, whether it was positive or negative messaging, it made people more likely to vote yes. So sort of the more they heard about it, the more likely they were to vote yes on it. We don't know if it's going to be that way this time around or not. And just because the polling comes back and says that it's a good idea doesn't mean the financial resources will be out there, nor does it mean that the volunteer power would be out there. Last time we went to the ballot in 2008, we collected 30,000 signatures from volunteers and 140,000 signatures from paid canvassers. So if the feasibility study, I guess this is part of the feasibility study that we're in right now. We'll see what the polling comes back and says. We'll see what some of the major funders, the major environmental groups, the major renewable energy industries, perhaps even the major energy efficiency industry partners. And we'll develop the language with a coalition of experts that are working on this, and say, if we went back to the ballot, would it be a 20% or 25% standard? Clearly, what happened this session sort of undid what we did in 2008. So, if we're going to go back to the ballot, we would need to make sure that vote that vote matters, that it's not just undone sort of automatically by the elected officials, or that they don't have the ability to just sort of undo whatever's done a couple of months later. And also that with what happened in front of JCAR, the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, make sure that doesn't that process doesn't repeat itself. So we're looking into all those details. One part of the feasibility study that's happening right now, though, that I'd like to ask is for all those who are listening, who that's on this webinar right now would consider volunteering their time to help collect signatures if we do, in fact, have a campaign to go back to the ballot. They get either voice or on chat or however you communicate with me.
Well, I was there for Proposition C, so I would probably do it again. I went through a period of depression in the meantime over how everything gets turned over. And also, I worked for the puppy mill bill, and that got overturned. But have you heard of this attempt by the puppy mill hating people that they're going to try and do a petition to require 3/4 of the legislators to vote before they can overturn something that the people have put on the ballot?
Yeah. Yes, I have actually. I had a meeting with one of the people who's organizing that a couple of weeks ago, and wanted me to sign on to support that. And I don't quite know enough about it yet to sign on one way or the other. But from what I understand, and I'm sorry, is that Jeannie asking?
Yes.
From what I understand, Jeannie, it is given everything that has happened over the last few years and sort of this pattern of, okay, people go to the ballot and pass something because they're frustrated and can't get it done in the legislature, and it passes, and then that same legislature that wouldn't have passed what they wanted in the first place undoes whatever it is that they pass. That one thing that seems like it could help break that pattern would be to have Missouri be one of the states that has more of a sticking process. When the people pass something, it sticks more than just a 50% mark. It would take more than just a 50% vote at any time to overcome that. Now, my understanding is there's 24 states in the country that have some sort of a ballot initiative process, and of those 24 states, 14 of them have some sort of protections in there for when something passes on the ballot, either the legislature can't touch it for 2 or 3 years, or in California, I think it's the strictest, they can't ever change it. And the only way to change anything in California that's been passed by the voters is for the voters to pass something else. Or some states have a 66% or 75% of the vote is what it would take for the legislature to change it. So that's what's being promoted by the National Humane Society and others that are saying, well, hey, everything we've passed has been undone. So let's say that from this point forward, anything that the voters pass would take a 75% vote of the House and Senate in order to be changed. And I think that for our purposes, it would be a good thing. It would mean that as long as we had at least 26% of the House or the Senate, then we could keep a new law that we would pass in place. Is that your understanding of it too, Jeannie?
Yes, but I just heard that like yesterday, or the day before. It's like the first time I realized they were doing that.
Yeah, it's my understanding that that's a serious effort. I know that Joe Maxwell, former lieutenant governor, and he's now he now does a bunch of different things. But one of the things he does is represent small solar with the Missouri Solar Energy Industries Association. He's signed on to support that initiative, and ultimately, I think it would only be helpful. Now, part of the depression process of seeing everything getting undone over the last year or so has been not the legislature changing the law, but JCAR, a committee within the legislature changing the rule that the Public Service Commission created. So while I think it would be really helpful and very, very helpful to have some sort of a sticking process where it takes 66 or 75% of the votes of the legislature to change something that the people pass, we also need to address what just happened. Now, the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules never had authority over the Public Service Commission until 2005. And it seems that the only time anything's come before them has been when Prop C became before them, and it seems that they made some really poor decisions there. So that's one thing. As I'm talking with potential funders of going back to the ballot, they're saying, well, even if we write the perfect law and even if we pass it with 100% of the vote, as long as you have JCAR there making such poor decisions, what's the point? So that's something we're looking at in the language, is actually removing JCAR's authority over the Public Service Commission, or in some way addressing what JCAR's role is in that process. so we can say that that it would be worth our while. I mean, to go back to the ballot. We don't have the polling back yet, but assuming the polling comes back and says, yeah, this would be a good idea, then if the money is out there and the volunteer time is out there, then it's still not worth it unless we can be pretty confident that after going through that whole charade again, we wouldn't be in a process that takes 2 or 3 years and we realize that the whole law is not effective. So those are the two things that I think would also have to happen in addition to going back to the ballot and saying, oh, this is going to now be a 20, 25, 30% standard. And it would also need to address those two issues of, the majority of the people are in the right place on this, but the majority of the legislators are in the wrong place. So something to protect the majority of the legislatures from doing the wrong thing, and also something to protect the JCAR from doing the wrong thing.
Okay. Sounds necessary.
Okay, Kathleen, thank you. I got a chat from Kathleen. Kathleen would be willing to help with this process as well. Thank you. And it's funny. This is the fifth time we've done this presentation. They've always been in person before, and it's I really am excited about this. I mean, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I was mistaken in thinking that we could just put something on the ballot and pass it, and it would be a job well done. I didn't even know that there was a thing called the Public Service Commission and some process called rulemaking at the time. But after passing it, okay, there was 6 months of debt retirement because we spent $70,000 more than we got on the campaign. So then after that, there was a year and a half of rulemaking, and then we succeeded, and that was right down to the wire, and 5 commissioners, and one of them was on the fence, and finally did the right thing, and we thought we were done then. And then JCAR has just been this sort of unbelievable process over the last year, seeing what's happen. But what are we going to do? Give up, move to a different state, or regroup and re-strategize, reactivate? Our philosophy is that it's time to reactivate. It's time to regroup, learn from our mistakes. I don't know that we really made mistakes, but learn from what's happened over the last couple of years and be smarter, be more sophisticated, and potentially go back and pass an even stronger renewable energy standard. Somebody's got to do it.
Sounds good. Yep.
And this is actually the end of the presentation. We're right sort of at the end of the hour as well, so this is pretty good timing. Jeannie, I think you might be the only person on the phone. I have chat messages here from Kathleen and Yule. I think they're not in front of a microphone. But for the three of you, what questions do you have on the presentation today, or what thoughts do you have about this process of moving forward? Anything that it seems like we're just overlooking, or something we're doing well you want us to keep doing? What do you think?
Well, I'm impressed by the enthusiasm you have for attacking the points that need to be attacked. I was ready to move out of the state. But no, I think a very good presentation. I'm sorry I couldn't have made any of the ones in person, but this was very helpful. And I'll stay out of it now and let the other people chime in.
Okay, great. Kathleen or Yule, do you have any questions here at the end? Okay, great. Yule's got to go. Okay, well, I guess this wraps it up. I mean, our next, this is the last of the legislative recap and reactivate meetings. I'd say the next phase for us this summer, while we're managing the administration of this poll to see how a ballot initiative would do if we put it back on the ballot in 2012, and polling our interest from volunteers and funders, is we're going to be doing some outreach in July, going around to different events. We have a spreadsheet of different events it seems like they'd be good to go to and set up a booth at and sign up people who haven't heard about this or who have heard about it and been involved in before, and start to build our cadre of of volunteers who can go out there and help collect signatures. That signature collecting wouldn't start to occur until sometime in August, maybe towards the end of August. But over July and August, we need to be getting the word out there that, hey, it looks like we're probably going back to the ballot. Could you help us when it's time to do that, to go out there and collect signatures? Excuse me. So, Jeannie, do you know about any events going on in the St. Louis area you should be aware of in July that'd be good to go to?
I'll pull down through the organizations I belong to, and what's the contact number for you, as far as we can come up with something.
Oh, okay.
Or should I let you know offhand? I guess.
I'll put my contact information here in the chat. Can you see the chat box, Jeannie?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put my my email address and my phone number there, and we'll also we'll add you to the list of people that we'll email directly. Well, actually, we'll send you out a spreadsheet of events that we're aware of and planning to go to soon, and then you can let us know if you can join us at any of those, or if there's some that it seems like they're missing from that list.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Enjoyed it.
Love the presentation, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Okay. Broadcast.